Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Self Love Over Everything podcast, where we explore what it means to become the greatest versions of ourselves through the incredible act of self love. My name is Snowy Lee. You may know me as Poetic Touch on Instagram. I am so grateful to be here recording this for you right now, and I am so honored that you're here listening with me. Thank you. Since this is the very first episode of the podcast, I'd like to give a little bit of context on why I'm creating it and give a little background on who I am for those of you who don't know me. I also have a self love affirmation that I'll be sharing at the end of this episode, so make sure that you do listen all the way through. And just before we get into it, I just want to say how grateful I am for those of you who requested that I did this podcast. I know that it has been a little while in the making, but I appreciate your patience while I'm, working on this learning curve and learning how to create new content for you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'd like to begin this short introductory episode with a quote. This quote comes from Oscar Wilde, and it says, "To love oneself is the beginning of a lifelong romance." Absolutely love this quote. I think it's beautiful, and I hope that you feel the same way about it. And I hope that if you have a hard time or when you're feeling a little low, this is something that you can come back to, which is the reason why I absolutely love quotes, beautiful quotes and affirmation. And that's why I am going to be sharing them here on the podcast with you. So this leads us into why I'm creating this podcast. So, self love over everything. First of all, I'm curious what that makes you think or what that stirs up inside of you. For me personally, I think self love is an essential part to living a fulfilling life. I have been on the self discovery journey for about 8 years now, and I've been on the path of self love for at least the last five. And when I think back to who I was then, before I began this journey, and who I am now, um, you know, considering all the things that I've accomplished and all the things that I've done, I honestly have to say that I owe it all to self love. And that's why I coined Poetic Touch as a safe space for women on the journey of self discovery through self love, because I honestly feel as though self love is the whole point of it all. It is the reason behind it all. And once you begin to have a love affair with yourself, you honestly it changes you. It changes who you are, your outlook on life, the things that you the ways that you see yourself, the things that you find yourself capable of doing. It's absolutely, honestly, to there just aren't enough words. I say all that to say that despite how long I've been on my path and how long I've been on my journey, it's still something that I have to work on constantly and consistently. Practicing self love is something that takes time, it takes effort. And, you know, I don't know about you, but no one ever sat me down to tell me how to love myself, how to practice self love. I was fortunate, and I am fortunate enough to have a supportive mother who, spoke positive words of affirmation to me, and, um, spoke highly into me. And I definitely know that it has a lot to do with who I am today. However, um, even with all of that, there's just no school, there's no class, there's no teaching on how to actually love yourself, how to have a healthy relationship with yourself and the people around you. And despite how long I've been on the path of self love, I still have to remind myself frequently to practice it. And I have to remember that self love is the most important thing that I can reinvest back into myself. And this podcast is an ode to that. I'm really excited to be here and to begin this journey. I don't ever want people to listen to this podcast and think that I think my life is perfect, or that I think that I'm perfect. Um, because that has never and will never be the case. And I can be transparent and honest enough to say that, like, proudly, because I feel like it's a big part of the human experience. And I feel as though, um, I understand that it's difficult to admit that you've uh, had a roadblock in life, but also at the same time, it's what makes you you. It's what makes you who you are. You wouldn't be who you are had you not experienced those things, or had you not gone through those things, or, you know, I don't know. It's kind of, in the age of social media, it's very easy to want to only show your wins, and that's fine. I don't think that people should share all of their dirty laundry on the internet. That's definitely not what I'm saying. It's just that there's nothing wrong with admitting that things aren't always 100%. Things aren't always in tippy top shape. And so that's the basis of how I even began my journey here. Um, it's what led me from pouring my heart out on Instagram posts to being placed in the position of a self discovery coach by so many of you. And it's what led me to create resources and further led me to, become a self published author, among other things. So honestly, without embracing everything, it's really hard to go forward. How can you go forward if you don't embrace what made you who you are? So anyway, that's a little tangent, but it's my goal to serve as a beacon, by just sharing what I've learned along my personal journey with you. And as I always say, self discovery is learning to love who you are now as you evolve into who you'd like to become. And so I hope that with this podcast, I'll be able to help you discover your own light and your own way along your own journey. There are so many women who are walking this path of self love or attempting to walk this path of self love, and they feel completely alone. And I just want you to know that you're not alone. There are so many of us, and this space, this podcast, it was created just for you. And I honestly am just really thrilled for what's in store. And as we near the end of this podcast episode, I'd like to leave you with an affirmation. I am worthy of love and self love. And again, I hope you can use this when you're having moments of doubt, even when you're not having moments of doubt. Just saying positive affirmations, you'd be surprised the effect that they can have on your mood, your surroundings, the energy around you. I mean, I will get into that in another episode, but so again, I'd like to thank you for listening to this very first episode of the Self Love Over Everything podcast. Feel more than free to share any upcoming topics you'd like for me to cover. I also ask that you subscribe to the podcast from whatever platform you're listening, and stay tuned for next week's episode titled, Do You Even Love Yourself? I am so stoked. I am honored. This podcast is dedicated to women on the journey of self-love. Welcome. Your heart is safe here. It's my absolute honor to serve you.